नहमदुहु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम अम्मा बअदु फ़अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. Dear respected friends, elders, sisters and brothers all across the world, I greet you with the Islamic greeting. May peace and blessings be upon all of you. Today's topic that we'll be discussing will be what is the most successful investment post 2023. So this is a very deep topic, and I would like you guys to pay quite a lot of and close attention to our discussion today. So this topic will be broken down into 4 different parts because it's a very lengthy topic, and I'd like to go step by step and stage by stage in my explanation of what will be the successful investment in the coming years. Because we don't have much of a choice as we move into the changing dynamics of the world and the geographical changes of the countries, etc. and etc. So what we're going to look into is today's first part will be focusing on the risks. What are the risks of the businesses or the investment that we will be looking into in terms of the success of the investment. So we're going to start off with the possible risks, and we will underline those possible risks and go into the depth of these risks to be able to identify before we even start talking about the actual investment, which will be in the last part and the fourth part. So the first part talks about the risk, the second part will talk about the recommended responses to these risks, and the third part will talk about specifically what are the successful investment portfolios. And the last part in itself will be the survival rate of the businesses which we'll be proposing. So first and foremost, what are the risks that are present or that will be presented to the investment of anything, all the investment in 2023 and post? So the first and the great risk to any business in today's market or in today's time is the risk of rising inflation. So we need to look into this factor. Holds a great importance in the changing of the markets and the dynamics of businesses all across the world, regardless of the type of the country you're in. So the rise of the inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is the rise of the prices of the products that you buy in a country. So it is quite closely related to the trends in the market, the changing behavior of the markets. And various elements dictate the inflation. Over the time, there is some generic inflation that take place. For example, 100 years ago, in Britain, a bus fare was £1 to travel from one place to the other. Obviously, after 100 years, the natural inflation will take that from £1 to maybe £4, the same particular travel that you'll be undertaking. So the inflation is the change of the prices of the products and the services. And we need to understand that inflation has to be controlled and it has to be under a specific target or a specific percentage within the economy. So the cost of living is directly impacted with the inflation rise in the prices. So we need to look into what the general situation of today's economies are. Countries such as Britain, European countries, American countries, and Asian countries, all across the board, African countries, they all are struggling with increase of the price of the products. And this is the gravest and the biggest risk that we face, and it poses to the global economical markets. So it's quite important for us to understand that before I suggest to you the most successful business portfolios, we need to understand what are the underlying factors or the risks attached to any business that'll be taken, that'll be coming into incorporation post 2023, let's say from next year. So cost of living will be the biggest challenge. And my belief is, and I have to keep this within the Islamic context, so my strongest belief will be that as we get closer to the times of the appearance of the fitna, and tribulations and trials, and we don't know when Mahdi alayhi salam will be coming forward to take the leadership of the ummah. I have a strong belief that the inflation will keep rising and keep rising until Mahdi alayhi salatu wasalam will be appearing, or will come out, or will be born, or will take charge of the leadership. So it's very important to understand that until that leadership is in its original shape, or it comes into being, until then the inflation will not be something, or will not be possible to stop. Now, why will Mahdi, may Allah have mercy on him, why will he be the source of inflation being controlled, or inflation being stopped at a particular point, or in better shape? This is because when Mahdi comes out, he will present greater ideologies of how to run businesses. He will also come up with a new and working formula of how to how to bring forth the most successful businesses that can impact positively in the Islamic economies. So this is something based on all the hadiths, based on whatever I've read, and based on Allah's wisdom in Quran. I have come to this conclusion, and this is purely my opinion, which can be wrong, is that Mahdi will bring forward an economical model which will be offered to the Ummah and to the general public, and that Muslims will be following that formula quite closely. And because of following that formula, Islamic economies will start emerging, and they will take over the international economies, and they will be the ruling and leading economies in the world. So that is a great news. Now, people can disagree with me. I mean, there's a lot of people who might be even laughing at my statements. But remember, guys, I mean, it doesn't take long, and you should not be laughing, because it doesn't take long for the power to be shifted. And this is something that's really happening these days. If you look around us, and how the power is shifting from the west to the east. And according to in line with the Sunnah, and in line with the statement of our holy and blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the final messenger of Allah, the final prophet of Allah, it is very clear that the time of Mahdi will be time of prosperity, time of growth, business growth, and demand of Muslims in the leadership. So the huge leadership will be formed by the Ummah, by the Muslims, and Mahdi will be the leader of that. So we need to understand that it's not beyond our imagination. It is not impossible that this will take place. Rather, it is very much possible that he will come up with a very workable, dynamic, and very workable economic policy that will be implemented throughout the globe. Now, moving on to the second point is, what is the biggest risk that is presented to any businesses, or any business that will be starting in this year or the years to come? The second and the foremost risk is the risk of flooding. Floods everywhere due to the global warming. We need to understand that this is my also another opinion, and when I give my opinion, they are quite strong, because they're backed up not only by the scientific changes and the environmental changes, and also the factual things that are happening around the world, but also they're based on the hadith, they're based on Quran, then they're based on how the history looked like. So it is my opinion is based on all of these factors and the political changes in the world, and this is purely my opinion. But I would like to say we need to consider it quite carefully how these changes are taking their shape. So my prediction and my forecast, let's take it as a forecast, is that the flooding is the second largest threat, I would say, that any business faces in 2023 and post 2023. So we need to understand that flooding is something that is beyond our control. There's nothing much we can do other than planting the trees, other than making sure that the pollution is controlled, making sure that the vehicles and all the polluting agents are being controlled nicely by all the economies around the globe. It is not something that one country can do, and it will change everything. World as a whole unit need to take this responsibility. And that's the reason why we see campaigns such as against fossil fuels, against burning the fuels. Why? Because they are raising the right point, which is that save the environment. This is a time, otherwise this planet will be no more. The life of the planet has already been shortened, and we are bringing it to its destruction. So my prediction is that every year from now onwards will be worse than the year before when it comes to floodings. And floodings will carry on taking place every year, year by year, whether it be winters, whether it be summers, and a time will come when this flooding will stop because the glaciers won't be there anymore to be melted because they'll be all melted in about next 5 years or 10 years time. I'm just giving you a broader time. My belief is it's going to be much closer than that, but let's call it like by 2023 the glaciers will be melted. This is how the global warming is taking place. So when the glaciers are melted, then the second stage of the dilemma will start, which is that now when there's no more water available, the droughts will start happening and the rain will be scarce. So it will stop raining at many places in many parts of the world, be very rare, and rain will be found in very, very rare places, very unique places such as mountains, such as higher altitudes, and the other parts of the world will be all in droughts, and people will be struggling for drinking water, for normal water. Even floods won't be taking place. So in a nutshell, we will be in a full-fledged drought situation for 3 years to 5 years time. That not only bases itself on the hadith prediction, but it also bases on itself in terms of how long it should last, and then God will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help the ummah, and we will be coming out of that drought. And that drought in itself will be a test before Dajjal, the Antichrist, comes out. Because in the narrations it says that before Dajjal comes out, one of the signs of Dajjal is that there'll be droughts. The whole world will be facing a drought. When he comes out, he will offer people abundance of wealth, etc., and try to entice people in terms of accepting him to be God, which will not be the case. So this is also another risk that all the businesses will be facing from now onwards, and we have to be very careful whenever we are coming up with any business plan that we take these reasons and these issues and these risks under consideration. We take them in consideration and we come up with the right business strategy that will go long term and that will give us a nice return. So there is return on investment. So third and and another important factor which is also attached to the natural phenomena and natural disasters is going to be earthquakes and wildfires. So as we speak, wildfires are happening these days whenever it's peak summertime or the hottest time in a country. What will very soon happen is that this will carry on for another couple of years into burning the trees and making the atmosphere more warmer, in which it will be difficult for any habitat to survive, and vegetation, crops, everything will be affected badly. So this is another biggest phenomena that is affecting businesses and the human life in the coming years. So a time will come when not only the summers will be an issue, also winters, during winter time and colder weather time, these wildfires will still be carrying on, taking place, and the winters will soon turn into like hotter times, etc., and etc. And then the winters will be hotter and the summers will be cooler. This change has already started happening. As we notice, many countries have had change of seasons, and this is something that's alarming all across the world, and it is the biggest threat that any business faces in the years to come. Now, another important factor which we all are aware of is the wars, battles, fighting between the countries. Now, this is not something that's going to address the issue in a positive way. It's going to make the whole situation of businesses and the business dynamics, it's going to make it worse. So wars is something we can't stop. People will engage more into wars, and the countries will be at war against each other more and more. It will become more common, and people will try to, find reasons to have wars, the countries. And a time will come, then the countries will be also fighting on the water, and the wars will be taking place on water as well. Like for the fight of water, that we need water from your country because we are dying with thirst. So people will invade other countries to have access to the water, drinkable water, like rivers. But that time will also pass away, and we'll move into another era, another dynamics of market and economic uncertainty across the globe. So because of the wars and all the factors I've discussed with you today, such as rising inflation, floods, earthquake, wildfires, the market economic position will be devastated, will be badly hit, and all the graphs of the business economical models will start facing their bust, and they will come down to a halt or maybe very close to functioning. So, very close to not functioning. So, it's really important to understand that the uncertainty across the globe is something we can't stop, and it will carry on from 2024, let's say from today, all the way up until 2030. And a time will come by 2030 when the worst and the last global recession will take place. So all these years between now and 2030 are almost getting closer to the global recession. And I believe that maybe between 2026 and 2030, in those 4 years, it'll be the peak time of the global recession, in which people will be suffering badly and people will be struggling. So we need to come up with such business plans that will be beneficial to us, that can save our back, and that can also keep us in a safe side when the whole world will be struggling. So if the world listens to me today and they start adopting the right plans, and they listen to more of the videos that'll be recording in regards to the second, third, and the fourth part, you will be able to understand what are the correct investments to be made in the coming years. So now, what happens when the global recession will hit its peak? A time will come when the recession will be right on top in 2020, right before that time. It won't pass 2030. I'm pretty sure on that, as much as I have studied and as much as my opinion is formed. So my forecast says that before 2030, the world will hit the worst recession of the history. And that means that the financial markets and all these artificial markets will be busted. They will be gone. And what happens after is that the new economies will be formed. And new economies will be formed, and the power of the West will be shifted towards the East. So now the good news for the Eastern countries is that the countries who are controlling the world power right now, such as the West, this power will be shifted all across to the East, such as Central Eastern Asia, half of Middle East, and that side all the way up to Indonesia, etc., all the way to China and Japan. So these countries will be the leading countries in the coming era, and in terms of like the business growth. And the countries who are not relying on the primary sector, such as United States, UK, and other countries, they will be struggling. So my humble request to people who live in these countries to start adopting policies and procedures and start shifting your investment across to Eastern countries, because that is where the future lies. And if you're not investing in East or the Middle East, let's say on the other side of the Middle East, which touches the Eastern Asia, that side, or the borders of the Asian and the Middle Eastern countries, these are the areas where the investments need to be made. If you invest anywhere in Asia, it's going to be safe. This is my prediction. So that's what I'm going to say, because my job is to not only protect Muslims. My job is to also make sure that the rest of the humanity and the whole of the mankind is protected in the worst of the times. And I'm not doing this because of the fame I want to gain by recording these videos. I've got nothing to do with YouTube fame. I've got nothing to do with TikTok fame. All I have to tell you is the reality and the ground reality. So people must be given the time to prepare, so that people can have the time to prepare for the worst to come. And if you are going to let it go just like that, there is a slim chance that it might not happen. But the greater chance is that what I've said is going to be true. And may Allah make it easier for us, and may Allah save us, because we can only predict, but the only knowledge rests with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the Lord who decides what time will be when. So we can only plan for the worst. And also by saying this, if we even plan for this, it's not going to be negative for us anyways. Because if you are setting up businesses in other parts of the country, it's going to be cheaper anyways, in terms of tax savings, in terms of benefiting from their cheaper labor markets, in terms of benefiting from their skilled labor force, which you might not find in the Western countries. So all in all, it is a successful process, and it is going to be a successful investment. So we today touched upon the risk factors that the businesses will have. In the next part of our video, we'll be talking about the recommended responses, which is a part 2 of what can we do during these risks that are presented to us, that we face. What type of businesses can we work on? What can we do to make sure we are setting up a successful business in 2024? Thank you very much for listening to me. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.